I watched my wife blow out 40 candles surrounded by 50 people who had no idea I was about to blow up her entire life. And I'd been planning it for exactly 6 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days. If you got some time and maybe a strong drink, settle in. This is going to be long, messy, and honestly, I'm still not sure if I'm the hero or the villain of this story. But I'll tell you everything, and you can decide for yourself. So why did I wait 182 days to destroy my marriage instead of confronting her the moment I found out? That's the question everyone asks, and the answer is simple. The Marines taught me that the best offense starts with perfect intelligence and patience. I needed to know everything before I made my move. Every lie, every dollar, every moment she thought she was getting away with it. Here's what happened. I'm Ryan, 41, Marine Corps veteran turned cybersecurity analyst living in the suburbs outside Austin, Texas. For 14 years, I thought I had a solid marriage with Michelle, my wife, a luxury real estate agent who looked like she'd walked out of an Instagram ad for wine and yoga retreats. We had 2 kids, Emma, 12, and Lucas, 9, a nice house in Cedar Park, and what everyone called a perfect life. Except it wasn't perfect. It was a lie wrapped in designer bags and catered parties. This story is about how I discovered the affair. How I spent half a year gathering evidence while smiling at family dinners. How I turned her 40th birthday party into the courtroom she never saw coming. And how, in the end, winning didn't feel quite the way I thought it would. Let me take you back to the beginning. Michelle and I met in 2010 at some forgettable bar in downtown Austin. I was 27, fresh out of the Marines after 8 years of active duty, trying to figure out who I was in the civilian world. She was 25, working a receptionist job at a law firm, bubbly and magnetic in a way that made everyone in the room look at her when she walked in. I wasn't the type to approach women. Too much rejection in high school, too much discipline in the military. But she approached me, asked if I wanted to dance. I said no because I don't dance. She laughed and bought me a beer instead. We talked for 3 hours that night. She asked about the Marines, actually listened to my stories instead of just thanking me for my service and moving on. I asked about her dreams. She wanted to be successful, to have a beautiful home, to build something that mattered. I remember thinking she was out of my league, but maybe, just maybe, she saw something in me worth keeping. We got married a year later. Fast, I know, but back then it felt right. The wedding was small, just family, a few friends, a backyard ceremony at her parents' place. She wore a simple white dress from David's bridal. I wore my dress blues. We honeymooned in Galveston because that's what we could afford. It was perfect. She said she loved how stable I was, how I never yelled or lost my temper, how I made her feel safe. I loved how alive she made me feel, like I wasn't just going through the motions anymore. In those early years, we were good. We had Friday date nights at cheap Mexican restaurants. We'd stay up late talking about the future, the house we'd buy, the kids we'd have, the life we'd build. She'd fall asleep with her head on my chest, and I'd think, this is it. This is what I fought for. We bought a house in 2012, a modest 3-bedroom in Cedar Park, 15 minutes outside Austin. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. Emma came that same year, a surprise pregnancy that we weren't quite ready for, but welcomed anyway. I remember holding her in the hospital, this tiny 7-pound person, and feeling terrified and grateful all at once. Michelle was a natural mother, patient, loving, always singing to Emma even when she was exhausted. Lucas came 3 years later, planned this time. By then I'd gotten a job at a tech firm doing cybersecurity. Boring but steady. $95,000 a year. Not rich but comfortable. We could pay the mortgage, take the kids to Disney World once, save a little. Michelle stayed home with the kids until Lucas was 2, then started selling real estate in 2015. She struggled at first. Months without a sale, late nights studying for her license, open houses where no one showed up. But she didn't quit. I admired that about her. Then the pandemic hit, and something shifted. The housing market exploded. Everyone wanted to leave the cities, move to the suburbs, work from home. Michelle's career took off. She went from listing 2 houses a year to 2 houses a month. By 2022, she was listing $500,000 homes and making more than I did. I was proud of her. Really, I was. But somewhere in that success, we stopped being us. That should have been a good thing. I was proud of her. But somewhere around late 2022, things shifted. She started working late, 2 or 3 nights a week. Client dinners, she said. Open houses on Sundays. I didn't question it because I wanted to be supportive. The Marines taught me to be a team player, and I thought that's what marriage was, supporting your partner's success even when it means you're home alone with the kids making mac and cheese at 8 p.m. because mom's showing a property. Looking back, that's when the cracks started forming. I just didn't see them yet. In late 2021, a couple moved in across the street, Scott and Catherine Drummond. Scott was a hedge fund manager, 45, loud, drove a Tesla, wore designer everything. Catherine was 43, former model, stay-at-home mom to 3 teenagers. They had money, real money, and you could tell Scott wanted everyone to know it. Their house was the biggest on the block, one of those modern McMansions with the glass front and the waterfall feature in the yard. Michelle was obsessed with them from day one. She'd see Catherine at neighborhood events and immediately latch on, laughing too loud at her jokes, asking where she got her purse. I didn't mind. Michelle liked nice things and nice people, and the Drummonds were both. Scott was obnoxious but harmless, the kind of guy who talks about his portfolio at backyard barbecues. We went to their 4th of July party in 2022, and Michelle spent the whole night gushing about their kitchen renovation. By December 2022, Michelle was listing properties for Scott's investment firm. Commercial spaces, luxury condos, stuff way above my pay grade. She was thrilled. Big commissions, she said, networking with serious money. She started dressing differently. Newer clothes, more makeup. That expensive perfume she used to save for special occasions, now worn on a Tuesday. I thought she was just getting into her boss era, as she called it. I should have known better. The first red flag I actually noticed was in March 2024. Michelle came home at 11 p.m. on a Friday, claiming she'd been showing a lake house to out-of-town clients. She kissed me on the cheek, said she was exhausted, and went straight to bed. But when she leaned in, I smelled perfume I hadn't smelled that morning. A different scent, sharper, and her hair was slightly damp, like she'd just showered. I didn't say anything. I told myself I was being paranoid. But the thought sat in my brain like a splinter. In April, things got weirder. Her phone was suddenly password protected. She'd had it open for years. Our kids knew the code. I knew the code. It wasn't a big deal. Then one day, passcode required. When I asked, she laughed it off. Oh, I changed it after that thing at work where someone's phone got hacked. You know how it is. I nodded. Seemed reasonable. Except she never told me the new code. She also started deleting texts immediately after reading them. I'd see her phone light up. She'd glance at it, smile, type something back, then swipe to delete. Every single time. When I asked who she was texting so much, she'd say, "Oh, just the girls," or "work stuff, boring." Then in early May, she announced a girls' weekend trip to Fredericksburg, Texas, wine country, cute town, very Michelle. She left Friday morning, said she'd be back Sunday night. I took the kids to the zoo, made pancakes, did normal dad stuff. Sunday evening, she came home glowing, talking about how relaxing it was, how she needed that break. Except something felt off. So Monday morning, while she was in the shower, I did something I'm not proud of. I checked the family phone plan. I'm the account admin, so I have access to location data. Her phone had been in San Antonio all weekend, not Fredericksburg. San Antonio. I didn't confront her. I just filed it away, started paying closer attention. By late May, I was noticing patterns. She mentioned Scott a lot. Scott needs me to handle this listing. Scott says the market's shifting. Scott wants me to tour a property downtown. I knew she worked for his firm, so it wasn't inherently suspicious. But then one night at a neighborhood party, Catherine, Scott's wife, pulled me aside and joked, "Your wife and my husband are always working late these days. Guess that's what happens when you're ambitious, right?" She laughed. I laughed. But inside, my stomach dropped. That's when I decided to investigate, for real. Memorial Day, weekend 2024. The kids were at Michelle's parents' house. Michelle was working. I sat in my home office, staring at my laptop, thinking about what I was about to do. I could be totally wrong. Maybe she really was just working. Maybe I was turning into one of those paranoid husbands who ruins his marriage over nothing. But then, I remembered her damp hair, the deleted texts, San Antonio instead of Fredericksburg, the way she said Scott's name, too casual, like she was trying not to say it too much. The Marines taught me that the best offense starts with perfect intelligence and patience. I wasn't going to confront her based on a hunch. I needed proof. Hard, undeniable, this will hold up in court proof. So I started digging. First, I installed monitoring software on the family iPad. We shared it. She used it for work emails because the screen was bigger than her phone. It was technically legal since it was a shared device. The software backed up her emails, calendar, and any photos uploaded to the shared iCloud account. I didn't hack her phone, that's illegal, even in Texas, but I could see what she backed up. I also started keeping a spreadsheet. Dates, times, locations. Every time she said she was working late, I'd note where she said she was and when she came home. I pulled credit card statements. I checked the GPS on her car, legal in Texas if you co-own the vehicle, which I did. For 3 weeks, I found nothing definitive, just inconsistencies, small lies, a receipt from a restaurant she never mentioned, a calendar block labeled client meeting during hours when I knew she was home. Then came June 18, 2024, a Tuesday, the day everything changed. I woke up at 6:45 a.m. for work. Michelle was still asleep. I went to check the iPad backup out of routine. Honestly, at that point I was starting to think I was crazy, that there was nothing there, and then I saw it. A photo, uploaded at 2:13 a.m. the night before. It was a mirror selfie, Michelle and Scott, in a hotel room. She was wearing a black lace bra I'd never seen. His hand was on her chest. They were both smiling, and the caption, Jesus Christ, the caption said, 182 days and counting. I sat there, staring at my phone, and my hands started shaking. I couldn't breathe. Literally couldn't pull air into my lungs. My vision tunneled. I remember thinking, this is what a heart attack feels like. 182 days. I counted backward. That put the start at around January 1st, 2024, New Year's Day. We'd gone to the Drummonds' New Year's Eve party. Champagne, fireworks, the whole deal. Michelle had disappeared for 20 minutes around midnight. Said she was in the bathroom. Scott had been gone too. I remember because Catherine asked where he was when we were doing the countdown. They'd been fucking for 6 months. I scrolled further into the backup, found old messages that had been deleted from her phone but were still in the cloud recovery. Months of texts between them. Can't wait to see you. He'll never know. I need you. Lines about hotels, times, logistics. She called him baby. He called her gorgeous. They talked about running away together someday. There were financial details too. Scott had been giving her money. $2,000 a month deposited into her personal checking account. For expenses, he called it. She was using it to pay for her designer bags, her spa days, the expensive dinners she claimed were client meetings. I walked to the bathroom, sat on the floor, and tried not to throw up. I stayed there for 20 minutes, staring at the wall, trying to process what I'd just seen. Then I went to work. Didn't say a word to Michelle. Kissed her goodbye, like I always did. That night I came home and acted normal. Hey babe, how was your day? She smiled, said it was busy, asked if I wanted takeout. We ordered Thai food, watched a show. She fell asleep on the couch. I sat in the dark, staring at her, thinking, who the hell are you? I had a choice to make. Confront her immediately, trigger the emotional fireworks, probably end up in a messy, he said, she said divorce where she'd gaslight me and take half my assets. Or do what I was trained to do. Gather intelligence, build a case, and strike when I had the advantage. I chose the latter. I opened a new encrypted folder on my laptop and titled it Operation Accountability. Then I got to work. For the next 6 months, I lived a double life. On the surface, I was the same Ryan, reliable, steady, boring. I made breakfast, took the kids to school, went to work, came home, kissed my wife. We had sex occasionally. She told me she loved me. I said it back. But underneath, I was documenting everything. I hired a private investigator in early July, a guy named Greg Palmer, recommended by a Marine buddy. Greg was expensive, $200 an hour, but discreet. Ex-cop, knew the game. I met him at a diner off I-35, showed him the evidence I had. He nodded, didn't judge, just asked what I needed. I said, proof. Ironclad, this will hold up in court proof. He gave it to me. By mid-July, he had photos of her and Scott entering the La Quinta Inn on Research Boulevard 47 times over 6 months. Every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork. Sometimes they'd stay 2 hours, sometimes 4. They had a routine. Greg even got photos of them in the parking lot. Her touching his face, him holding her waist. Both of them laughing like they didn't have families waiting at home. One Tuesday in late July, I followed them myself. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to see it with my own eyes. I parked 3 cars behind Michelle's Lexus and watched her pull into the hotel lot at 6:15 p.m. Scott's Tesla was already there. She got out, checked her makeup in the rearview mirror, walked to room 217. He opened the door before she knocked. They kissed. The door closed. I sat in my truck for 2 hours staring at that door, thinking about what was happening inside. When she finally came out at 8:30, hair messed up, smile on her face, I felt this cold rage settle in my chest. Not hot anger, cold. The kind that doesn't scream, the kind that plans. I also got a divorce attorney, Diane Brennan, 52, sharp as a knife, specialized in high-asset divorces. I met with her in late July, laid out everything I had. She looked at the evidence and said, "This is a slam dunk. Texas is a fault state. Adultery gives you significant leverage in asset division." She walked me through the legal landscape. In Texas, if you can prove your spouse used marital funds for an affair, like Michelle accepting $18,000 from Scott, that's called dissipation of marital assets. It means I could argue for a bigger share of our stuff. But I needed more documentation. Bank records, detailed timelines, proof of every penny. So I kept digging. I pulled credit card statements going back 2 years. Found charges at restaurants she'd never mentioned. Hotel rooms in San Antonio, Houston, even one weekend in New Orleans I'd thought she spent at a real estate conference. The lies went deeper than I'd realized. I also started moving money. Not illegally. Diane made sure of that. But I quietly transferred 50% of our savings into a separate account, changed the passwords on our shared credit cards, got new cards in my name only. If Michelle tried to drain our accounts when I filed for divorce, she'd find half of it already gone. The hardest part wasn't the investigation. It was living with her, sitting across from her at dinner, listening to her talk about her day, knowing every word was potentially a lie. There were moments when I almost broke, like the night in August when Emma asked why Mommy and Daddy didn't go on dates anymore. Michelle looked at me, actually looked sad and said, "Yeah, we should do that." I wanted to scream, "You're fucking Scott Drummond 3 times a week. Why would I take you on a date?" But I just smiled and said, "Sure, babe, let's plan something." Or the morning in September, when Michelle made pancakes for the kids and sang along to the radio, looking so normal, so mom-like, and I thought, how does she do it? How does she compartmentalize this? How does she kiss our children goodnight and then text her lover 10 minutes later? I asked Diane that once. She said, People are capable of incredible mental gymnastics when it serves them. She's convinced herself she's not doing anything wrong, or that you don't care, or that she deserves this. That's how cheaters function. By September, I had a plan, but I needed a venue. That's when Michelle started planning her 40th birthday party. She'd been talking about it since July. "I want it to be perfect," she said. "Big, memorable, something everyone will talk about." She hired a caterer, rented a white tent for the backyard, booked a live guitarist. She made a guest list. Neighbors, her real estate colleagues, my few friends, her family. 50+ people. She spent $6,000 on that party, our money, and that's when it hit me. She wanted a party to show off, to prove to everyone how perfect our marriage was, how successful she was, how lucky she was. Fine, I'd give her a show. I started making my own plans. I arranged for the kids to sleep at Michelle's parents' house the night of the party. Told Michelle it was so we can enjoy the night without worrying about bedtime. She loved the idea. I prepared a slideshow, told Michelle it was a surprise tribute to her. She thought it was sweet. I spent weeks on it. The first 10 slides were real, wedding photos, the kids' births, family vacations, sweet moments, the kind of stuff that makes people tear up at parties. Then slides 11 through 25, hotel receipts, bank transfers, screenshots of text messages, photos from Greg's surveillance, time-stamped, dated, undeniable. I also had Diane prepare divorce papers. She'd have them delivered by her assistant, who'd pose as a guest at the party. 2 days before the party, I did something I still feel conflicted about. I called Catherine, Scott's wife, told her everything, gave her copies of the evidence. She didn't believe me at first, thought I was crazy, or lying, or trying to start drama. Then I sent her the photos. She went silent for a long time. Then she said, "That son of a bitch." I invited her to the party, said she didn't have to come, but if she wanted to see the truth play out, she was welcome. She said she'd think about it. The night before the party, I lay in bed next to Michelle. She was scrolling through her phone, excited, talking about the playlist, the decorations, who was bringing what. I listened and felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just cold, mechanical focus. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow it all ends. The party started at 5 p.m. on Saturday, October 26, 2024. The weather was perfect. Mid-70s, clear skies, that golden Texas light that makes everything look like a movie. Our backyard looked incredible. White tent, string lights, tables with floral centerpieces, a bar setup with a bartender Michelle hired. The guitarist was playing soft indie covers. Michelle looked stunning. She'd bought a new dress, $800, I'd seen the receipt, and had her hair and makeup professionally done. She was glowing, working the crowd like a politician, hugging everyone, laughing, posing for photos. She introduced me to people as my amazing husband, kissed me on the cheek, squeezed my hand. I smiled, played my part. Scott and Catherine arrived separately. Scott came at 5:30, loud as always, slapping backs, complimenting the setup. Catherine showed up 20 minutes later, standing at the edge of the yard watching. Our eyes met once. She nodded. By 6:30, everyone was there. 53 people, I counted. Neighbors I barely knew, Michelle's real estate team, her parents and sister, a few of my co-workers, my best friend Jason, who'd driven up from Houston because I'd told him, "You're not going to want to miss this." The first 90 minutes were normal. Cocktails, appetizers, small talk. People kept coming up to me saying, "You must be so proud of her," and "What a party, man." I nodded, said thanks, kept my face neutral. At 7:15, right before cake, Michelle's best friend Amanda stood up and gave a toast. Funny stories about Michelle's 20s, jokes about aging, the usual birthday speech. Everyone clapped. Michelle was beaming. Then Amanda turned to me. "Okay, Ryan, your turn. Say something about your beautiful wife." I stood up, tapped my glass. Everyone went quiet. "Thank you all for coming," I said. My voice was steady, calm. "Michelle's been planning this night for months, and I wanted to make sure it was unforgettable." People smiled. Michelle blew me a kiss. "I actually made a slideshow," I continued. "A little tribute to our 14 years together. I thought it would be nice to reflect on our journey." Michelle's eyes lit up. "Ryan, you didn't." "I did." I walked over to the projector. We'd set it up earlier for music and photos. I pulled up my laptop, connected it, dimmed the string lights. The first slide appeared on the screen. Our wedding photo 2011. Both of us young and smiling. People sighed. Someone said, "Aw." Slide 2. Michelle pregnant with Emma. Slide 3. Emma as a newborn. Slide 4. Our first house. Slide 5. Lucas's birth. Slide 6. A family vacation to Colorado. Michelle was smiling, a little teary. Her mom had her hand over her heart. Slide 7. Christmas 2020. Slide 8. Emma's 10th birthday. Slide 9. Michelle's real estate awards. Slide 10. Last Thanksgiving. All of us around the table. Then I advanced to slide 11. The screen changed. It was a scanned image of a hotel receipt. La Quinta Inn, Research Boulevard. Date, June 20th, 2024. Reservation, under the name Scott Drummond and Guest. Total, $187.43. There was a moment of confused silence. Then someone gasped. Michelle's smile faltered. "Ryan, what?" I didn't look at her. I advanced to slide 12, a bank statement. Highlighted line, $2,000 deposit from Scott Drummond. Date, July 15th, 2024. Michelle stood up. "Ryan, stop this right now." I advanced to slide 13, a photo from Greg's surveillance. Michelle and Scott walking into the La Quinta Inn, his hand on her lower back. Timestamp. August 8th, 2024, 6:47 p.m. The crowd was dead silent now. You could hear the guitarist stop playing. Scott stood up from his table. "What the hell are you doing, man?" I finally looked at him, showing everyone the truth. Slide 14, a screenshot of a text message. Michelle to Scott. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I told him I have a late showing. He won't suspect anything." Slide 15, another text. Scott to Michelle. "You're incredible. I can't believe I get to have you." Michelle was crying now, mascara running. "Please, Ryan, please stop." I kept going. Slide 16, a photo of them in a hotel mirror. The one I'd found on June 18th, her in the black bra, his hand on her chest. The caption, 182 days and counting. Someone in the crowd said, "Oh my God." I turned to face everyone. My voice was calm, almost clinical. "My wife Michelle and our neighbor Scott Drummond have been having an affair for 10 months. I discovered it on June 18th. That was 182 days ago. And I've spent every single one of those days documenting it." Michelle collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Scott's face was red, his jaw clenched. He looked like he wanted to punch me. Catherine, standing in the back, was crying too, but she didn't look away. I advanced through the remaining slides. More receipts, more texts, a timeline showing 47 hotel visits, a bank record showing $18,000 transferred from Scott to Michelle. Over 6 months. "Scott's been paying her," I said, my voice louder now. $2,000 a month. That's dissipation of marital assets under Texas law, by the way. Michelle's mom stood up. "Ryan, how could you? How could I?" I turned to her. "How could she? She's been lying to all of you, to me, to our kids, for almost a year." I looked at Scott. "And you? You have a wife, 3 kids. Did you think this would never come out?" Scott stormed toward me, but Jason stepped in his path. Jason's 6'2", former Marine Corps linebacker. Scott stopped. "I'm not done," I said. I signaled to a woman standing near the door. She walked over, Diane's assistant, dressed like a guest, holding a manila envelope. She handed it to Michelle. "Michelle Mitchell, you've been served." Michelle looked at the envelope like it was a snake. What? What is this? Divorce papers, I said. I filed 2 weeks ago. You'll find that I've frozen our joint accounts and documented $18,000 in marital funds you accepted from Scott, which Texas law allows me to use as leverage in asset division. My attorney will be in touch. Michelle opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I looked at the crowd, 53 people, all staring at me. Some looked horrified. Some looked impressed. Most just looked shocked. "Thank you for coming," I said. "Enjoy the cake." And then I walked away. The next 20 minutes were chaos. People started leaving, awkward, silent, some stopping to hug Michelle, others just disappearing. Scott and Catherine had a screaming match by their car that half the neighborhood heard. Michelle's parents tried to talk to me. Her dad called me cruel. Her mom just cried. I didn't respond. I walked back into the house, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and sat on the back porch watching the party disintegrate. Jason came and sat next to me. "Brother," he said, "that was extreme? I was going to say unforgettable." "Good," I said. That was the point. By 8:30, everyone was gone except Michelle, her parents, and a couple of neighbors helping clean up. I stayed inside, listening to Michelle sob in the backyard. Her sister kept saying, "How could he do this to you?" Like I was the villain. Maybe I was. Eventually, Michelle's parents drove her to their house. She didn't say a word to me, didn't even look at me. I spent the rest of the night cleaning up, taking down the tent, boxing up the decorations, throwing away the cake no one had eaten. The Marines taught me to finish what you start, even if it's ugly. The fallout was immediate and brutal. By Sunday morning, a video of the party had gone viral on the neighborhood Facebook group. Someone had filmed the slideshow on their phone. The comments were split. Half the people saying I was a hero. The other half calling me cruel, vindictive, petty. By Monday, it had spread to local Reddit threads. Did anyone see what happened at that party in Cedar Park? People were sharing their theories, their judgments, their hot takes on whether what I did was justified or psychotic. Michelle moved in with her parents. She wouldn't talk to me, except through lawyers. Her real estate brokerage, Keller Williams, launched an ethics investigation. She'd slept with a client, which was a major violation of professional conduct. The investigation took 2 weeks. They didn't fire her, but they made it clear she needed to transfer to a different office if she wanted to stay. The stigma was too much. Within 3 weeks, she'd lost 5 major listings. Clients didn't want the scandal agent. One client told her broker, "I can't have someone represent my home sale if I can't trust her judgment." Another just ghosted her after the party. No explanation needed. Her income, which had been 6 figures, dropped to almost nothing. By December, she was barely scraping by on smaller listings. Starter homes, townhouses, nothing like the luxury properties she'd been handling before. Her social media, which she'd used extensively for business, became a battleground. Some people left supportive comments. "Don't let one mistake define you." Others were vicious. "Once a cheater, always a cheater. I hope your kids see what kind of person you really are." She eventually deleted all her accounts. Scott's firm, the hedge fund where he was a junior partner, put him on immediate leave. The official reason was pending internal review. The real reason was that he'd been using company funds to pay for the hotel rooms, expensing them as client entertainment and business development. When the partners saw the evidence from my slideshow, which someone had helpfully forwarded to the firm's ethics board, they launched their own investigation. They found 2 years of fraudulent expenses, 53 hotel rooms, dozens of dinners, even a weekend trip to Napa Valley that Scott had claimed was a client meeting, but was actually him and Michelle. The firm fired him in mid-November. Not just let him go, fired him for cause, which meant no severance, no recommendation, and potential legal action to recover the misused funds. Scott tried to find another job in finance. He couldn't. The industry's small and word travels fast. By January, he'd moved to Dallas and taken a job at a mid-tier financial planning firm, making a third of what he used to. Catherine got the house, primary custody of their 3 kids, and a divorce settlement that left Scott with almost nothing. The neighborhood became a minefield. Some people stopped talking to me. The Hendersons next door, who'd been at the party, wouldn't make eye contact when I saw them at the mailbox. Mrs. Chen from 2 houses down crossed the street to avoid me, but others would nod approvingly when they saw me. A few guys pulled me aside at the grocery store and said, "That took guts, man. I don't know if I could have done it." I didn't know how to respond. Was I supposed to say thanks? Was it something to be proud of? Emma, my 12-year-old, was furious. She didn't understand why I'd done it that way, why I couldn't have just talked to Mom privately, handled it like adults. She yelled at me one night in early November, said I'd embarrassed her, that kids at school were talking about it, that her friends' parents were gossiping. "You didn't just hurt Mom," she said, crying. "You hurt all of us." She was right. Lucas, at 9, was too young to fully understand, but he knew something was very, very wrong. He stopped sleeping through the night, would wake up crying, asking when Mom was coming home, asking if it was his fault. I'd hold him and say, "No, buddy, none of this is your fault." But I don't think he believed me. We started family therapy. The therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Patel, asked me, "Ryan, did you consider how this would affect your children?" I said, "Every day." "And you did it anyway?" "Yes." "Why?" I sat there for a long time. Finally, I said, "Because I wanted her to feel what I felt, humiliated, exposed, powerless." Dr. Patel nodded slowly. "And do you feel better now?" "No." Emma was in the session. She looked at me and said, "Then what was the point?" I didn't have an answer. Then, in mid-November, I got a call from Michelle's sister. Her voice was shaking. "Michelle tried to hurt herself last night. She's okay. Mom and Dad got her to the ER in time, but she's in a 72-hour psychiatric hold." I felt like someone had kicked me in the chest. My hands went numb. What did she do?" "Pills. Not enough but enough that they're taking it seriously." She left a note. "Ryan, she's not okay." I visited her at the hospital the next day. Cedar Park Regional Medical Center, 4th floor, psychiatric ward. Sterile, white walls, fluorescent lights. A nurse who asked me to empty my pockets before I went in. Michelle was in a pale blue gown, sitting in a chair by the window staring at nothing. Her hair was unwashed, no makeup. She looked 10 years older. When she saw me, she didn't cry or yell. She just looked at me with empty eyes. "I lost everything," she said quietly. "My career, my friends. My kids won't talk to me. Everyone hates me." She paused. "You destroyed me, Ryan." I sat down across from her. My throat felt tight. "You destroyed us first. That doesn't make it even." She was right. It didn't. "I made a mistake," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "A horrible, selfish mistake. But you made sure I'd pay for it for the rest of my life. In front of everyone. You didn't just expose the affair. You made me a spectacle, a joke." I wanted to argue. To say she deserved it. To remind her of the 182 days she lied to my face. But sitting there, looking at her like that, broken, medicated, barely holding on, I couldn't. "I'm sorry," I said finally. "Not for exposing it, but for how I did it." She laughed, a hollow sound. "That's the worst part. I can't even hate you completely. Because I know I did this, I started this, but you finished it in a way I'll never recover from." I drove home that night thinking about what I'd done. Yes, Michelle had cheated. Yes, she'd lied for months. Yes, she'd taken $18,000 from Scott and spent it on herself while I paid the mortgage and the kids' tuition and everything else. Yes, she deserved consequences. But did she deserve that? Public humiliation, in front of 50 people, her career imploding, a mental breakdown so severe she'd tried to end her life. I kept asking myself, did I do this for justice or for revenge? And honestly, I still don't know the answer. The divorce moved forward. With the evidence I had, Michelle didn't fight me on much. We settled on a 70-30 asset split in my favor. Texas law sided with me on the dissipation argument. I got the house, she got her car and some savings. We agreed on 50-50 custody. By December, I was living in the house alone every other week when the kids were with her. It felt empty, haunted even. I'd walk past the backyard and see that spot where the tent had been, where I'd stood with the laptop, where 53 people had watched me detonate my marriage. Some nights I'd sit out there with a beer, replaying it, wondering if there was a version of this story where I'd handled it differently. I started therapy myself. Dr. Patel recommended someone for individual sessions, a guy named Dr. Marcus, who specialized in veterans and trauma. I thought it was overkill. I wasn't traumatized. I was fine, except I wasn't. The first session, Dr. Marcus asked me to tell him what happened. I gave him the bullet points: affair, investigation, party, fallout. He listened without interrupting, then said, "You spent 6 months gathering evidence. Did you spend any time asking Michelle why, or telling her how unhappy you were?" "She's the one who cheated," I said, defensive. "Yes, and that's on her. But you shut down emotionally years before she did. Both of you failed the marriage, in different ways. That hit hard, because he was right. I'd been so focused on being steady and reliable that I'd stopped being present. I worked, I parented, I existed, but I didn't connect. Michelle and I hadn't had a real conversation. Not about feelings, not about our relationship. In years. We talked about the kids, the bills, the schedule. But not us. "When did you stop touching her?" Dr. Marcus asked one session. "What do you mean?" "Affection. When did you stop kissing her when you came home? Holding her hand, hugging her just because?" I had to think about it. "I don't know. 2020, 2021, we were busy. Kids, work. And sex. Maybe once a month, sometimes less. Did you talk about it?" "No." Dr. Marcus leaned back. "You can't just exist next to someone and call it a marriage. Michelle was lonely. That doesn't excuse the affair, but it explains it." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't, because he was right. I'd stopped trying, stopped courting her, romancing her, even really seeing her. I'd treated our marriage like a checked box, got married, had kids, done. And Michelle had tried. I could see it now, looking back. The times she'd suggested date nights I'd been too tired for. The times she'd dressed up and I'd barely noticed. The times she'd reached for me in bed and I'd been half asleep or too stressed to respond. I didn't cause the affair, but I contributed to the loneliness that led to it. By January, the divorce was moving forward. With the evidence I had, Michelle didn't fight me on much. We settled on a 70-30 asset split in my favor. Texas law sided with me on the dissipation argument. I got the house, she got her car and some savings. We agreed on 50-50 custody. Custody was harder than the assets. Michelle wanted primary custody, argued that I'd traumatized her and wasn't emotionally stable. My lawyer argued that Michelle had violated the marriage, that her judgment was questionable. The mediator, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia, said, "You're both mess. But those kids need both of you. 50-50 unless someone proves the other is actively dangerous. Neither of us could prove that. So, 50-50 it was." Michelle was stable by then. She'd been released from the psychiatric hold after 3 days, started outpatient therapy, went on medication for depression and anxiety. She was working again, slowly rebuilding her real estate career at a boutique firm in Round Rock. Smaller deals, lower commissions, but steady. She'd also joined a support group for people dealing with public shaming. Apparently there's a whole community for that now thanks to the internet. We had our first civil conversation in months in late January. just logistics about Lucas's 9th birthday party. She wanted to do it at Chuck E. Cheese. I thought that was a waste of money. We compromised on a backyard party at her parents' house. At the end of the call, she said, "Thank you." "For what?" "For not taking the kids away completely. I know you could have pushed for primary custody. You had the evidence." I didn't know what to say to that. "They need you," I finally managed. "They need you too." Pause. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I know I said it before, but I really am, for all of it. I'm sorry too, for how I handled it." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was something. In March, I met someone. Her name was Beth, 38, divorced 3 years, worked in IT security for a healthcare company. We met at a cybersecurity conference in downtown Austin, one of those tedious industry things with bad coffee and PowerPoint presentations. She was presenting on firewall architecture, and she made a joke about how most companies' security protocols were held together with duct tape and prayers. I laughed. After her talk, I found her at the coffee station. "That was a good presentation," I said. "Thanks, and thanks for laughing. Most people just stare at me like I'm speaking Klingon." We ended up talking for 2 hours. About work, about Austin, about the absurdity of corporate tech culture. She was smart, funny, self-deprecating in a way that felt genuine rather than performative. At the end of the conference, she gave me her number. "If you ever want to grab coffee and complain about legacy systems, let me know." I waited 3 days, then texted her. We met at Mozart's on Lake Austin. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into walking around the lake for an hour. She told me about her divorce. Her ex-husband had been emotionally abusive. She'd finally left after 5 years. Now she was rebuilding her life. I told her about mine. Not the whole story, not yet. Just the basics. Married 14 years, divorced in process, 2 kids. On our 3rd date, at a quiet Italian place in Clarksville, I told her the rest. The affair, the investigation, the party, the slideshow, Michelle's breakdown, all of it. I expected her to make an excuse and leave. Who wants to date the guy who publicly humiliated his ex-wife? She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a minute. Then she said, "Okay, okay? Yeah, that's a lot, and it sounds like you're still processing it. But we all have shit. At least you're honest about it. You're not, I don't know, horrified. A little. But also your wife cheated on you for almost a year and took money from the guy. That's not nothing. You handled it badly, but I get why you were angry." It was the most non-judgmental response I could have hoped for. We took it slow after that. No rushing into anything. She met the kids in May. Casual, just ice cream at Amy's. No big declarations. Emma was skeptical. Lucas liked her because she knew a lot about Minecraft. I didn't push it. I also reconnected with old friends. Jason visited more often. Drove up from Houston once a month for poker nights and barbecue. I'd isolated myself during the marriage, told myself I didn't need friends because I had Michelle and the kids. Turns out I did need them. We'd sit on my back porch, drink beer, and he'd let me talk through everything without trying to fix it. "You did what you did," he said one night in April. "You can't undo it, but you can learn from it." "Learn what?" "That revenge doesn't heal you. It just gives you something to do with the pain." I started volunteering too. There's a veteran support group that meets at the VA clinic on Wednesdays. I'd sit in a circle with other former Marines, listen to their stories, share mine. Not the affair stuff, just the transition from military to civilian life, the struggle to find purpose, the weight of carrying discipline into a world that doesn't always value it. One guy, a former sergeant named Michael, said something that stuck with me. "The Marines taught us to be weapons, but nobody taught us how to be human again." Yeah, that. And slowly, in those small moments, Lucas's baseball games, Emma's school plays, Saturday morning pancakes with the kids, quiet evenings with Beth, I started to feel like I could breathe again. In April, there was a moment that stuck with me. I was at one of Lucas's games. Michelle was there too, sitting on the opposite side of the bleachers. We didn't talk, didn't acknowledge each other. But when Lucas hit his first home run, we both stood up and cheered. For 10 seconds, we were just two parents proud of their kid. And it felt okay. After the game, Emma ran up to me. "Dad, Mom says she's taking us for ice cream. You want to come?" I looked over at Michelle. She was standing by her car, watching us. She shrugged, gave a small smile. "It's just ice cream," I said. "Yeah, okay." We went to Amy's Ice Cream on Burnett Road, sat at a sticky table outside. The kids talked about school, summer plans, random kid stuff. Michelle and I mostly listened, occasionally making small talk. It was awkward but not hostile, just two people figuring out how to coexist. When we were leaving, Michelle caught my arm. "Ryan," she said quietly, "I'm sorry for everything." "Me too," I said, and I meant it. That's where I am now. 10 months after the party, the divorce is finalized. Michelle has a new boyfriend. Not Scott, thank God. He's a teacher, quiet guy, seems decent. Scott moved to Dallas after his firm let him go. Catherine got the house and primary custody of their kids. I heard she's doing well, started her own business. The kids are adjusting. Emma's still angry sometimes, but she's talking to me more. Lucas seems okay, all things considered. We have family therapy every other week. It's helping. Beth and I are still together. We're talking about moving in together in the summer, but I'm not rushing it. I'm learning that patience isn't just a weapon. It's also a way to build something real. People still ask if I regret it. The party, the public humiliation, all of it. Honestly, I regret some of it. I don't regret exposing the affair. Michelle and Scott made their choices, and those choices had consequences. But the way I did it, yeah, I could have handled it differently. I was so focused on making them hurt that I didn't think about who else would get caught in the blast. My kids, Catherine, Michelle's parents, hell, even the poor neighbors who just came for cake and got front row seats to a marriage exploding. The Marines taught me that the best offense starts with perfect intelligence and patience. But they also taught me that every war has casualties. And sometimes the casualties are the people you're trying to protect. I'm not the same guy I was 2 years ago. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. But I'm here, I'm healing, and that's something. Last week I sold the house. Too many memories. I'm moving to a smaller place downtown, closer to work, closer to the kids' school. Fresh start, new chapter. Beth asked me the other night, "Do you think you won?" I thought about it for a long time. "I don't know," I said. "I got the divorce I wanted. I exposed the lie, but I also lost 14 years of my life, hurt my kids, and became someone I didn't recognize for a while. So, did I win?" She squeezed my hand. "You're here. That's something. Yeah, it is. If you've ever been cheated on, you know that rage, that need to make them feel what you felt. And I get it. I really do. But here's what I learned. Revenge might feel satisfying in the moment, but it doesn't erase the betrayal. It doesn't undo the pain. It just adds more weight to carry. What does help? Time, therapy. Letting yourself feel the anger without letting it define you. Building new relationships, romantic or otherwise, that are honest and healthy. Learning to forgive yourself for not being perfect. I don't forgive Michelle, not fully, maybe not ever, but I'm not consumed by it anymore. I can see her at a baseball game and feel neutral. Not love, not hate, just acceptance that we were two people who tried, failed, and hurt each other in different ways. The Marines taught me that patience is a weapon, but I'm learning now that forgiveness is too. Not for her, for me. Because holding on to that anger, that need to punish, was destroying me as much as it destroyed her. I'm still learning which one to use and when, but I'm here. I'm healing. And maybe that's the real victory.